So today I wanted to talk about Justin Trudeau's resignation, and in a sense, I have a lot to say, and I also have nothing to say. That it would be great if there was a way for us to experience amnesia, so that we can never remember what this execrable creature has put Canada through. But I guess first, what I'll start is, when someone is raped, right? They will often, go and sit and take a shower to try to wash the stain of the person who raped them. It's both literal and figurative, metaphorical, right? You're trying to wash away the aggression. I fear that no amount of washing can remove the stain of Justin Trudeau. And I hope that history will remember the words of people like me and others, a few others, unfortunately, too few, who warned about this guy, who had their eyes open, who had their instincts activated. Because you can go back on the record and see that from day one that this guy entered the scene, way before he became prime minister, when he was starting to run as an MP, as a member of parliament, I was warning people about how dreadful he is. But unfortunately, not enough people listened, and here we are 9 years later. So, in a sense, you might be wondering, well, why are you dire? Why are you not jumping up and down in joy? Because it's hard to jump up and down in joy when you know that no matter what happens, he won. He got to be Prime Minister of Canada for 9 years. He got to use the position to advance all of his cardinal sins: pride, lust, greed, vanity. He exemplifies all those. Let me go on. I want to read for you something that I said in 2016. I had appeared on a South African show. The gentleman who was hosting me was Gareth Cliff, and this meme became quite viral. It's a meme of my actual quote at the time of Justin Trudeau. So I'm going to read it for you. So this is in 2016. So when it says I've been a professor for 23 years, now it would have to change to 31 years. Okay, so here we go. Quote: Justin Trudeau is an utter disaster on many, many fronts. And I say this not to be disrespectful, not to be bombastic in any way, but I genuinely mean it when I say the following. If I were to take in my 23-year professorial career the absolute dumbest undergraduate student that I've ever had, that student would be approximately 100 times smarter than Justin Trudeau. This is a guy who, until he was 40-something, his biggest claim to fame was that he was a snowboarder and a substitute drama teacher. And now he is the leader of one of the most important Western countries in the world, close quote. Now there, I was just talking about how dumb he is, how lacking knowledge, how much lacking profundity. Just a substanceless man, a man-child. But I'd like to add some qualifiers to this guy. He's smug, he's dumb, he's unethical, he's empty-headed, he's ignorant, he's a malignant narcissist, he's vacuous, he's arrogant, he's a sadist, he's a criminal, he's uncharismatic, he's creepy. He was caught not once, not twice, but 3 times in blackface. Now, I'm not one who, I clutch my pearls. Oh, God, blackface. But you know what? Megyn Kelly left NBC for simply saying, she was, ushered out of NBC for saying, hey, when we were growing up, that wouldn't have been such a big deal, or something to that effect, right? Hey, people wear Halloween masks and so on. But then, of course, the progressives were like, no, you're indistinguishable from the KKK for not condemning in more forceful ways blackface. Well, our prime minister was caught with blackface not once, not twice, but 3 times. he was caught in a groping scandal, during the hashtag Me Too movement. Now he's caught with a groping scandal. There were accusations and a lot of rumors, some of which are public, some of which I know privately and so on, that when he was a substitute teacher at 29 years old, I'll leave the rest for you to decide what that might mean. In any case, let's go on. Now, one of the ways that people try to overcompensate for their transgressions is, the old, I think it's Shakespeare, right? The lady doth protest too much, or whatever the expression is. Well, he becomes a ultra feminist, right? He's a male feminist. He recently, if you saw, he went up theatrically and said something like, "It wasn't supposed to be that way. It wasn't meant to be that way. We thought that the world was ready for a black president, but the United States is not ready. And I will always stand as a male feminist." I've got the exact quote in my forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy. But in any case, he was very, very upset. He was castigating the United States because they weren't yet ready to elect a female president of color, and that he would always have the back of all feminists because he is a male feminist himself. He said things like, instead of economic recovery, he said she-covery. A 7-year-old wouldn't engage in such buffoonery. He said that we're going to fight not recession, we're going to fight she-session. Because if you just replace the prefix, the start of a word, the root syllable of a word with she, then that demonstrates that you are very empathetic, and it removes any groping or inappropriate stuff that you might have done with young students or any of your debauchery. I know remember, I'm from Montreal. I grew up within a 5-10 minute drive from where he grew up. I know his ecosystem. I have mutual friends and so on who know him or know friends of his, and the stories are not good ones. But you don't need to hear this stuff from me. Anybody with the smallest reflex to judge people would know this. So he says she-covery, he says she-session, he's a male feminist. He wants to pursue a feminist foreign policy. What the hell is a feminist foreign policy? Geez, China's not going to touch us if they know that we're pursuing a feminist foreign policy. Islamic terrorists are never going to mess with us if we follow a feminist policy. But let's go on. I want to just stick on one topic at a time. So now, since we're talking about his feminism, all right, so he got caught up in all kinds of nasty stuff. Let's move on to some of his ethical and criminal breaches. ArriveCan, which was an app that takes roughly a 12-year-old 15 minutes to put together, if they know how to code, cost the Canadian taxpayer, I think, over $60 million. And, who knows where that money went. But it doesn't matter because you just have to raise taxes. Don't worry, Gad Saad is a very popular author, international best-selling author. We'll just take his book royalties. Don't worry about that. So we've got the ArriveCan scandal. We've got the SNC Lavalin scandal. This is where there was all kinds of bribery and corruption and all kinds of nastiness that is truly unimaginable. He tried to illegally interfere. That should have put him in jail. But you know what? Don't worry about it. Wink, wink. We'll go over. We'll ignore it. The extravagant trips, $83,000 a night on this hotel, $50,000 this for meals on this plane and so on, all in many cases personal vacations that I paid for. He took that from my book royalties. Now, you might say, oh, but all politicians are like that. No, that's not true. I hate Barack Obama. I despise him. Barack Obama, let's say, unlike Nancy Pelosi, I don't mean to imply that he didn't enrich himself, Barack Obama, but he certainly didn't go out of his way as a glutton to use every possible benefit of his position to, get free trips, to put things on his, and so on. What's his face? Donald Trump doesn't take a salary, right? I think the U.S. president's salary is $400,000 or something. He waives it, right? That's not, so in other words, you can hate many, many things about Donald Trump, but life is about you compensate one frailty by another quality, right? None of us are perfect. I may not be the tallest guy, if that's what you like, but hey, I've succeeded in life and I'm a funny guy and I'm rather easy on the eyes. And so I can make up for not being 6'2" and only being Lionel Messi's height by hopefully having other things to offer. Trudeau's got nothing to offer. There is no thing by which he can compensate for being an utter malignant narcissist degenerate. He took this position because it allows him to live his childhood dream at the mock United Nations debate club. That's the level that he's at. He's a man-child. He's a petulant cretin. Okay, so we've got that. Let's go on. So we don't like his personality. We think he's got very bad ethics. We know that he's committed some criminal breaches. He was incredibly corrupt. He was caught with blackface. He was caught groping. There are rumors that he had inappropriate relationships with his students. But does it end there? No. Let's keep going. When he was asked about Canada and Canadian values, he said that Canada is the first post-national nation. It doesn't have Canadian values. Imagine the representative of your country saying that you don't have any fabric that ties you together. That's why he's a globalist, right? He transcends Canadian values, right? He is a globalist. Okay, is that something that I want to hear in my Prime Minister? No. Justin Trudeau, so my 2020 book is The Parasitic Mind, as you all know. My forthcoming book is called Suicidal Empathy. I could have replaced the title of these two books by Justin Trudeau Part 1 and Justin Trudeau Part 2. The Parasitic Mind and Suicidal Empathy he is the poster child of both those books. Every single parasitic idea in The Parasitic Mind, he exemplifies. Indigenous knowledge is just as important, if not more important, than science. We have to have land acknowledgements. We have to engage in diversity, inclusion, and equity everywhere. The cabinet should be 50-50 women. We should honor the unique queer knowledge and transgender knowledge, because transgender people are able to summon an epistemological knowledge base that the rest of us heterosexuals are unable to obtain. That's why he's, the acronyms kept going up. I2 plus ALBGTQSLB2 two-spirit non-binary. That's a grown man who talks like this. He is my representative. He takes my taxes, my book royalties, to further advance gender queer studies in Pakistan, because he's not the Prime Minister of Canada. He is the woke minister, emperor of the world, right? Okay, let's keep going. When he wasn't yet a Prime Minister, he was just a member of Parliament. When the previous administration under Stephen Harper had put out a thing where they were saying, look, if you come to Canada, you have to abide by our values. We don't accept barbaric values like honor killings and child brides and female genital mutilation, Trudeau went up in a way that is so cringy, so theatrical, so inauthentic, waved his beautiful flowing hair and said he will not tolerate that this current conservative government uses the word barbaric to effectively describe horrendously barbaric practices. So Trudeau was not upset by the cutting off of clitorises of little girls. He wasn't upset by the honor killings of women. He wasn't upset by forced child brides. He was upset that you would call those things barbaric. And therefore he was adhering there to another parasitic idea from the parasitic mind, cultural relativism. Who are you to judge other cultures? The one who promulgated this as a political philosophy in Canada was his degenerate father called Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who instituted the political philosophy of multiculturalism, right? You come into Canada, you don't have to assimilate into our society. Hey, you like to cut off clitorises of little girls? We don't. Who are we to judge? No, motherfucker, I judge. You come into our country, you either do what we like or you get your ass back to Yemen. All right, let's keep going. When the Boston bombers, put out a bomb of peace using pressure cookers, Justin Trudeau, when asked by, what's his name, Mansbridge, this CBC castrato, what would you do, oh man-child who can't utter two words? I mean, look, I despise another Montrealer who also lived 10 minutes away from me, Kamala Harris. By the way, both Kamala Harris and Justin Trudeau grew up 10 minutes from where I live, where I'm right now speaking from. I know where they grew up. I know the fabric of their reality. They're degenerates. But all right, let's keep going. Kamala Harris is a lesser degenerate than Justin Trudeau. She's just an airhead who is Peter Sellers in the movie 1979 Being There. She just kept falling upwards, sometimes by putting on knee pads. But that's how she progressed through her laudable political career. But she's not a diabolical, malignant narcissist. Justin Trudeau is. He's hungry for women, for your money, for your tax dollars, for your attention, for your accolades. Pride is the root cause of all of the 7 deadly sins. He's the walking embodiment of that. So when he was asked, well, what would you do if, you got a call, with the 2 Tsarnaev brothers when they were caught, the 2 Islamic terrorists. He said, well, I've got the quote in Suicidal Empathy. I don't have it in front of me, but he said something to the effect of, well, that basically demonstrates that these people were not accepted. We didn't treat them like they were marginalized. They felt othered, right? So when the 2 Tsarnaev brothers were granted entry and were welcomed into the United States, and then decided that the best way that they can pay back the United States is that as people are arriving to the end of the Boston Marathon, you blow them up into pieces because they stated very clearly, because of their Islamic ideology and Islamic faith. Justin Trudeau didn't say that that's what it was. It's because we were in the wrong. Because this shows that, we didn't work hard enough. Suicidal empathy. You see it? All right, let's keep going. I'm just getting warmed up here. Omar Khader, do you know who that is? Omar Khader, he was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, providing material support for terrorism, spying, and conspiracy when he joined this really nice summer camp by this summer counselor called Osama bin Laden. But, he was only 15. What did he know? So, yes, he threw a grenade and killed a U.S. Soldier, and then he was sentenced to Guantanamo Bay. But then he filed a lawsuit saying that, because he was a Canadian citizen, Omar Khader, who went to Afghanistan to a summer camp with summer counselor Osama bin Laden, just a regular Canadian, sued the Canadian government, and the Canadian government gave him $10 million, from my book royalties, because he hadn't been protected as a Canadian citizen when he was sent to Guantanamo Bay. Suicidal empathy. It was not nice to have given this guy this massive sentence. And now he walks freely amongst us. He's got the same rights as I do. All right, that's Omar Khader. He's a good friend, Justin Trudeau, of the Aga Khan, the Shia Ismaili spiritual leader. He goes to his private island. He was caught in another political corruption scandal there. But don't worry about it. It's all good. Justin Trudeau did another great pioneering effort. He put Amira al-Khawabi, that's right, as the first emirate, the first combatant against Islamophobia. Yes? Well, in Canada, there has been, to say exponential would be an understatement. To say orgiastically exponential would be an understatement. To say that it approaches infinity, if any of you understand calculus, would be about right. The increase in Jew hatred in Canada makes me long for my days in beautiful Middle East, growing up as a Lebanese Jew. Okay? Much of that, not all of it, but much of it, comes at the hands of the astoundingly Islamophilic and, dare I say, anti-Semitic Justin Trudeau. Because every time a school was shot up in Montreal or Toronto, he quickly ran to the podium and sent his people to say we need to combat Islamophobia. It became so outrageous that became one of my satirical bits, whereby every single time I see any kind of Jew attack, I right away go on X and I say we need to redouble our efforts to fight Islamophobia. Ideas have consequences. The most dangerous force in nature is a parasitized human mind, right? Everything bad that's happened in history, short of natural calamities, have happened because some moron had a bad idea and then acted on that bad idea, and millions of people suffered, if not died. That's the stuff of history. Justin Trudeau has murdered, has raped Canada in a way that will be very, very difficult to return from. So let me tell you some of the things that he's done. Do you remember the Freedom Convoy? He invoked the Emergencies Act, saying that those truckers who were very reasonably saying, look, the draconian COVID lockdowns, he locked us down. I didn't commit a crime, but I was sentenced for too many years of confinement, as were my children, much more so than other countries. When the truckers decided to exercise their free rights as free individuals and free Canadians to protest, well, you know what he did. He froze their bank accounts. He called them, they were basically domestic terrorists. I couldn't go. Bill Maher had invited me on his show. Now, not a huge fan of Bill Maher, but I know that what's amazing about going on Bill Maher's show is that it would open me up to the types of people that should be listening to my message. It's one thing for me to appear on Fox every 2 minutes, but those people are already in agreement with the positions that I take. But if I can break through to the other side and I can try to get some of the degenerates to actually listen to my ideas, well then, more power to my mind vaccine. Well, I couldn't go on Bill Maher because Justin Trudeau had forbade me from traveling. When I say me, I mean all Canadians. Even though at that point the United States had opened up. In Quebec, which is not, I'm not going to put this on Justin Trudeau, but in Quebec, very late into the COVID lockdowns, very late into the COVID, quote, epidemic that had a 99.7 something percent curable rate, we couldn't walk our dogs outside after 8 p.m. There was a literal curfew. Your dog has diarrhea? Fuck you. And then because of some public outcry, they say, okay, yeah, maybe the dog diarrhea bit is a bit too crazy. And then they kind of walk that back. But that's what happens. The reflex for rulers is to take all of your liberties away. And Justin Trudeau certainly tried to do that. Okay, so let's keep going. Justin Trudeau told us that, when some of those ISIS fighters who are Canadians are coming back, while other countries did not look as favorably towards ISIS combatants returning home, Justin Trudeau said, well, wait a second. I mean, some of these guys, if they've been de-radicalized, there are ways that we can, reintegrate them within society. So Monday, I went and I beheaded infidels in Raqqa, Syria. Tuesday, I show up at Ottawa for, web design retraining. And he's kind, he's empathetic, he's compassionate. He's right. He knows that it's just they did these things in Raqqa, Syria because they were marginalized. If we show them kindness, we can flip them. That's Justin Trudeau. Let's keep going. Let me go through my list here. What have I got else for you? All right, let me keep going. Oh, yes. Do you remember this one? When he was asked about the economy and what would be his economic policy to, ensure that the budget will be balanced. Do you remember what he said? The budget will balance itself. Now, I've taken a lot of economics courses, microeconomics, macroeconomics. I have an MBA, I have an MS, Masters of Science, PhD from one of the leading business schools in the world, Cornell University. I never learned about how budgets can balance themselves. I didn't know this thing. This is kind of a cool thing. But that's when you have a man-child. I mean, a tall. Yes, he's tall. So I hear you. That's very sexy. But you need someone who's a bit more serious to lead a country. I'll come back to how he was chosen not once, not twice, but 3 times by Canadians in a second. But let me go on through. So if you go to see your physician, there's a set of metrics that he or she will look at as a first pass, just to get a sense, hey, are you good health? Let's check your blood pressure. Let's check your weight if it's gone up or down. Let's do a quick blood work, see that you don't have diabetes, see that how is your lipid score, right? So now that doesn't cover all of the possible things that can tell us whether you're healthy or not, but it's certainly a very good first pass. So what are some health metrics that we can look at if we're looking at Canada? Astounding inflation, unbelievable, of course, stemming from printing of money, from massive spending, massive increase in crime, a breathtakingly bad healthcare. By the way, free healthcare in Canada means that you tax me roughly at, when you add up all of the taxes, roughly 70 cents to the dollar. Yes, you read that, you heard that correctly. So, for example, when I bought a car and I spent, let's say, $50,000, if you don't count the fact that I spent $50,000, it was a free car. When I went to buy food at the restaurant, if you don't count the fact that I paid $100 for that meal, it was a free meal. It's the exact same principle when you say free healthcare. It is true that it's free to many people who don't pay into the parasitic socialist Ponzi scheme, but it's not free to the people who are taxed to death. So not only do I pay most of my income for the free healthcare, but because the healthcare sucks so much that I have to wait 18 to 24 hours in an emergency room if I have pneumonia, but I then have to be forced to take private healthcare. So I pay the free healthcare, the universal healthcare that all Americans look at Canadians with such envy, and then I also pay private healthcare. All right. Astoundingly high taxes, more gun confiscations. When I went to see the cops in Montreal, because I had been threatened in person by a noble person while walking with my then 10-year-old son, and I asked the cops if there's any way by which I can carry a weapon. They laughed at me and said, well, maybe no, just call 911. Because when Ahmad is coming at you, I'll say, hey, Ahmad, hold off with your insane genocidal hate. Let me call 911 and get the good folks to come and protect me. So I don't have the dignity to have the freedom to defend myself. Justin Trudeau decided that. I don't have the dignity to get the fruits of the labor of the work from my books, right? My words, my thoughts, my humor, my experiences, my theories. All that doesn't belong to me. 58% belongs to the government. Unlike, say, in Ireland, where every cent of my book royalties would be mine, because Ireland recognizes that there is a unique value that comes from their intellectuals creating knowledge from their culture. Okay? But Justin Trudeau says, no, hey Jew, produce more great books so I can take it for $83,000 a night parties for me. That's Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is for trans. Justin Trudeau is for die. Justin Trudeau is for land acknowledgements. Justin Trudeau is for indigenous stuff. By the way, is there a statute of limitation as to when the fact that the French coureurs de bois broke their Treaty 6 with the Iroquois and Algonquin in 1739, when we are no longer held accountable for what happened in 1739? Why is it that we still have to be apologizing today for what happened in 1739 with the Iroquois and Algonquin? Right? I don't have to look to 1739. I escaped Lebanon within my own lifetime, as did my parents, as did my wife's parents, as did my wife. And yet, we don't sit wallowing all day in victimology. My parents didn't accept a cent from the socialist parasitic welfare state because they had dignity, because they had honor. My mother would be crying when she was working at a store in Montreal for minimum wage, having been a rich businesswoman in Lebanon and having reached the upper echelons of Lebanese society, because she had dignity, because she had honor. Even though it was hurting her pride, we had honor, we stood tall, right? But Canada doesn't promote that. Canada is a wonderful place if you are a degenerate parasite, because then you benefit from the parasitic socialist system. But that system has to take money from someone. That's why my good friend Jordan Peterson said, goodbye, Canada. That's why this year I took a leave and I went to Michigan. That's why there are very good chances that I leave Canada permanently. It doesn't matter that Justin Trudeau is no longer here, because Canada doesn't have an ethos that promotes greatness, that promotes meritocracy, that promotes can-do attitude. The US does. That's why Elon Musk, after coming to Canada from South Africa, said, "See you later, guys." He went to Queen's University and then he moved to the United States. Nobody goes to the United States and says, "You know what? Screw the United States. They're too entrepreneurial. They're too based on meritocracy. Let's move to Canada where we could live under a socialist parasite system." Remember what Margaret Thatcher said, right? Socialism is a great idea. I'm paraphrasing, until you run out of other people's money. That it literally is a Ponzi scheme, right? Now, the reason why it takes a long time for the Ponzi scheme to collapse is because you could keep increasing taxes, right? Remember, 1917 was the first time that you had income tax in Canada. It was a very, very, very temporary measure that would be on a very, very small scale and to a very, very few people. 110 years later, almost, it's still here, and it's gone from a very few percentage point to most of your salary, because that's all you need to do. Don't worry about it. It's not your money. Just raise taxes. So all this to say, let me summarize. In the history of Canada, there has never been a worse degenerate. And I dare say that it is very likely that it is inconceivable that in the future, I'm using here my crystal ball, there could ever be someone as bad as Justin Trudeau, because he exhibits all of the worst frailties of the human spirit and none of the noble qualities. There you have it, folks. I wish you all a great evening. Please share this with anybody that wants to know more about my thoughts about Canada in general and Justin Trudeau in particular. It looks like, well, we'll see, but it looks like increasingly every day that our future is not in Canada. No, this doesn't mean that I don't love Canada. I've put in way more than what Canada's given me. I'm forever grateful that I was able to come to Canada when I was 11 years old, but that doesn't mean that you get to rape me endlessly until the end of times. There comes a point where if you don't appreciate my contributions and those of all other hardworking people, well then maybe the best way that we can vote is with our feet. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you soon. Cheers.